Hey Seekers, welcome to Moon Magic. We're going to be talking the Libra full moon on March 20th at 6:42 p.m. Pacific, so 9:42 p.m. Eastern. Obviously that'll be about March 21st for you guys further east. Yeah. So yet another 0-degree full moon. And I gotta tell you guys, man, the Mercury retrograde in Pisces has such a different feel than the Mercury retrogrades we've been having before now in the fire signs. I have been feeling it at such a profound level since it started last week. It has been kind of wild, the amount of dreaming. And I've just been like crying over things that yes, they matter. Yes, there's import to all of us like living in this world, but man, normally I can keep myself together with that stuff and just like power through, but I am not doing that. And honestly, you guys, this full moon, the Libra full moon almost always gets me. So this is just personal note. Every year, the Libra full moon tends to be a full moon that I feel. It just hits something inside of me, and I'm just like, and this, of course, is one of the last 0-degree full moons we have this year after this whole series of 0-degree moons we've been having most of this year. But here's the kicker with this one, you guys. So we have the 0-degree full moon on March 20th in Libra. And then in a month, around the 19th of May, we are having a 29-degree full moon in Libra again. So we have a double hitter of 2 full moons in Libra within a month. So this moon cycle has a very cyclical mirror energy to it, which is so fitting for Libra because Libra is so much about relationship, relation to self and other, and the reflexivity of being in this universe and in this world where we are so reflexive of each other, right? So I will say one thing about this full moon cycle. Normally, a moon cycle starts kind of with the new moon, and then we cycle through and we harvest at the full moon. From full moon to full moon is kind of going to have its whole own dialogue here. So just kind of keep that in mind. It's going to be something that will only make sense once we get through the second Libra full moon and we kind of look back at that whole cycle. It's just something to keep in mind. And there's a lot going on with this first full moon, so let's just focus on that for right now as far as lessons and as far as how you can utilize this moon, because when you have as many conversations going on as we are about to discuss for a full moon, it makes for one of those edgier full moons. We talk about this a lot because the full moons have been really active and very aspected recently. And there's a ton of conversations going on with this one. So when these full moons happen this way and we have a lot of energy, we have a lot of uncomfortable conversations popping up, this is a really great time to sit with the discomfort, right? We talked about this, I think, with the Leo eclipse in January, and how I was saying, it's not a time to numb out. It's not a time to tune out and just kind of like avoid. It's a time to listen into the discomfort. And so this is another one of those moons like that I will say right now. Tuning out, you are missing an opportunity to integrate. So this is the first full moon we're having after the Uranus going into Taurus transit. And also this is a full moon that's happening while we still have Mercury retrograde in Pisces. And of course, it's a 0-degree moon, so we are opening up Aries season with a bang. Hey, Aries season, I am so ready for you, but we are still in Mercury retrograde in Pisces, so we're still going to have a little bit of that energy. And the transition from Pisces to Aries I always find to be quite powerful because we're switching from the 12th sign to the first sign, and that is a sense of rebirth. It's a sense of engines starting in a new season and a new cycle. So there's a lot of this kind of death of self, re-evaluation, rebirth of self, right? Not only that, Aries Libra axis is so much about self and other, right? So Aries is, of course, the sun will be at 0 degrees of Aries. So we're opening Aries season, which is about the self, the ego, the I am, which is such a powerful energy. And Aries know how much I love them. And they get a bad rap. They can get teased a little bit for playing that role. It's a really powerful role though, right? So like being able to say, I am this being, I am this individual, I am this creature. is so powerful. I am this creature. I don't know. I am this soul. I am this being. I am this conscious entity that can create and manifest. It's so powerful to own that and then make it something powerful for yourself. Now, also we have the Libra energy getting ignited with this full moon. And Libra is about self and other. It's about reflecting. It's about relating. It's about communicating. It's about intellect. It's about how we use our words to create reality via that idea of perception, right? Perception changes experience. And as a lot of scientific studies over many decades now at this point have shown, you know, the act of observing changes outcome. It changes the patterns of things. Consciousness changes the patterns of things. So we're really working with the building blocks of consciousness when we work with Aries Libra energy. And we are working with how we can use our conscious minds to be more actively engaged with a conversation with the universe. And with a 0-degree full moon, you know what that means, guys. We've been talking about it for months. This is a time for opening up and graduating and moving behind and shedding a skin and stepping into a new doorway. It's a point of tension. It's a point of change and shift. 0 degrees is this kind of magical number, right? 0. So we already have that going on. We already have that going on. Now, the conversations that are going to be going on along with this moon, just the simplicity of the sun-moon opposition and that full moon and that illumination and that renewal and that ignition switch of the Aries-Libra axis. So not only do we have that, we have a handful of conversations going on in the sky. Some of them are challenging and some of them are very nurturing. So this is where I want to get to this idea of consciousness and perception and taking responsibility for oneself and taking responsibility for perception and the way we communicate. And so these conversations are going to be asking us questions about what we need to take responsibility for and also what we don't need to take responsibility for. Are you hearing me there? What we know is not ours to carry. So it's parsing out between what is ours to carry, what is ours to discover, to integrate, to explore, to be curious about, and what is absolutely no longer ours. What is a habit that we have inherited from a parent or a past relationship or a situation that was a defense mechanism at one point, but which is no longer applicable, right? Okay, so let's talk about these conversations, and as I talk about each one of these conversations, I think you'll kind of get a sense of where you may be hitting up against some of these tender energies as we shift into Aries season. So we have, the first thing to keep in mind is that the moon is in direct conversation with Uranus. So as we know, Uranus just moved in Taurus, so Uranus will still be at 0 degrees of Taurus during this full moon. And the moon, of course, is at 0 degrees of Libra. So this is a quincunx, and quincunx is, it's like kind of this 5 signs apart. So it's not an opposition, it's not a square, it's not a sextile. It's this funny position in between. And so it's a little bit uncomfortable, but it's not a directly aggressive conversation. It's just more like apples and oranges. Like, how can we have a conversation with these two very different energies? And it has, a quincunx isn't always very comfortable. And, you know, Uranus is trying to shake us up in a new sector of our lives, basically, and it's already starting. I don't know if any of you guys have noticed, but man, has that revolutionary energy just like taken off as soon as that planet shifted. So many people in my life have just been going through giant changes, giant shifts, making big lifestyle changes, all sorts of things have been going on. So that's fresh. It's a fresh transit. We're just getting used to the shakeup of the planet of revolution being in a new energy. And it's squaring off here against Libra, which is so much about how are we consciously connecting, right? So there's a little bit of irritability here. There's a little bit of impatience. There's a little bit of frustration. There's a little bit of like itching to say what you want, be blunt. You know, I think Libra and Taurus are both energies that are very much about like, let's just get in there and express our opinions. And so there's kind of this eagerness, you know, to like almost rip open the Uranus and Taurus conversation with this quincunx, with this full moon illuminating it. It just kind of gives us all this kind of itch to express our minds. Now, I think that can be really useful, right? Sometimes we need that little bit of that electrical surprise energy of Uranus, like under our butts to kind of make us realize where it really matters that we say what we think, right? And this is a great time to write that all out. If you're feeling like you're itching to express something, whether it's to yourself or to anybody else, this is a great energy for that. And I think what's a really good idea is to write that all out, let it vent, let it sit for a few days. And if it still seems applicable, it might be something that you take to your relationships, to your work, to what you're doing. Utilize that revolutionary energy to your advantage because it is quite powerful. So another of these kind of itchy, like frustrating kind of sexual tension energies, and we're not just talking about romantic sexual tension. A lot of times when I'm talking about sexual tension, we're like talking about like the tension of creation, the tension of being physically here and wanting to make things manifest. Mars and Venus are like in a perfect square in really funny signs for each of them, I have to say. So Mars is at 23 degrees of Taurus, and Mars does not know what he's doing in Taurus. He's like, what is this? What is this place, this goddess-ruled, like fertility, calm, gentle, like nurturing energy? Like, I just want to go, go, go. What is this like fixed sign warmth, right? So Mars is at 23 degrees of Taurus, and Venus is at 23 degrees of Aquarius. And Venus in Aquarius, I actually love that. I mean, that's just like, let's get it weird, let's get it interesting, right? But she's also kind of like a little bit more about the beautiful things in life, and Aquarius is a little bit more, how can we explode that? How can we play with that? So both of these planets are kind of, you know, in signs that don't always flow with them so naturally, and they're squaring perfectly at 23 degrees. So two fixed signs, Aquarius and Taurus, and they're sitting over here having this tense argument. You know, Mars and Venus obviously are the masculine feminine principles, right? It's the masculine martial energy and the feminine creative divine energy. And so their conversations are always really interesting. And when they're in direct dialogue like this, especially head to head in a square, it's asking us also how we give and receive. How much do we push too hard? Do we not act enough? And do we play passive too much? Or do we block ourselves from being receptive? That conversation's going on really poignantly in this Aries Libra, which is all about self and other relationship, right? So much has to do with relationships in this moon. And I will say, with these challenged conversations, the 0 degree placement and the signs that are involved, this is a really big moon where big things are going to be coming up when it comes to romantic relationships and patterning with that. Now, I'm not saying that everybody's going to have a blow up in their relationships, but I am saying that you will notice that these conversations and the tensions going on here in the sky are causing you to question, and will likely cause you to look at what you're carrying with you that is old mythology, that when it comes to how you relate to a romantic relationship. And what is yours and what is old patterning? What is yours to help and to grow and to expand beyond and to move forward in? What can you just say, oh, that's not mine. That's not mine. Oh, that's something I picked up from when I was like 5 and I witnessed a certain dynamic. Oh yeah, that's not mine. I'm not scared of that. So much powerful medicine here, right? So let's get to the positive aspects and how these creative, positive conversations are going to help these more challenged conversations for you to get some of the more playful side of this, right? So we have a sextile with Jupiter at 23 degrees of Sag. Loving that placement. Oh, by the way, it's wild. And also Venus again at 23 degrees of Aquarius. So this is a beautiful sextile. Like, I love the Sagittarian Aquarius energy. Like, those two are just two of my favorites. I'm all about the freedom and the expressiveness of those two energies. And so when you have Jupiter and Venus talking, it's about how can we expand this? How can we expand our lives? How can we live into new levels of like love and connection? How can we expand past where we've restricted ourselves? How can we imagine and daydream up better forms of relationship, better forms of connection, deeper, more playful forms of relationship? And honestly, with the Sagittarian Aquarian energies activated here, we're also asking how, relationships actually thrive when there is a sense of freedom and individuality and self-responsibility. And those are huge lessons that come from the Sagittarian Aquarian clans, is that we are self-responsible for growing and expanding and being happy and creative. And when we bring that fullness to our relationships, we're able to have deeper relationships, right? There's another beautiful sextile going on, which is that Mercury, which is still retrograde in Pisces at 18 degrees of Pisces, is in a sextile, another little sextile with Saturn and Capricorn at 19 degrees. And I like this one because since we still have the Mercury retrograde happening in Pisces, we're reassessing our fantasies, we're reassessing our emotional health, we're going deep, we're diving into the ocean, we're checking in with all of those layers, right? We're really doing some powerful stuff with the Mercury retrograde, which goes till the 28th, so we've got another week after this moon. It's in conversation with very grounded Saturn and Capricorn, and I think that is a beautiful thing because it's a reminder that even if we dive deep, even if we go to very heavy levels in our emotional growth, that is for the betterment of everything. You know, Capricorn wants to create a legacy, wants to play the long game, wants to build things that are substantial, and Saturn is working with us here. It's like Saturn has been playing in the moons this great role recently, I've noticed, where he's kind of the anchor point. We always love to give Saturn so much trouble for being like a killjoy and being kind of stern and about rules and restrictions, but when you think about all these other conversations going on, which is like, let's float over here and see what happens, let's be experimental over here, let's nudge, like bump heads over here, Saturn is like, hey, I'm here, you've got an anchor, you've got a safe point, I got your back, don't worry. And I think we really need that Saturn in Capricorn. He's been kind of cool about all of this stuff because he's like, hey, it's okay, dad is still here. And like a good dad, you know, because we don't want to get into that because once again, you know, with so much that has to do with relationship in this moon, we need a grounding, safe space to feel that we can explore that. And self-mothering, self-fathering is such an important part of that, right? And we've talked about this before with different moons. It's a really important part that we feel that we can trust ourselves if we are going to dive into old patterning, if we are going to dive into realizing, oh, that's not mine. We have to feel we have like a safety line, you know, so that we can pull ourselves back to a center point. And I think that's what I want to kind of leave you with while I pull my cards up here and we pull a few cards. This moon will pull you in a lot of different directions. It has the potential, everybody's going to hit into this very differently. It's not so much about destructive energy, but it is about uncomfortable internal conversation. And it could be about uncomfortable conversation with those you are close to. And it could be about expressing verbally, with language, with words, with our intellectual minds, what's going on with our patterning. Now, a lot, like I always recommend, you know, do that work with yourself. You know, you don't have to display this all out for everybody during the full moon. You can really just take this time. It's always such a sacred time to check in. So I'm a big fan of that. But, you know, if you have trustworthy people that you're close to, this can be a great time to go into some of these deeper layers and to share it and to be perceived and to perceive. This is a great moon to pay attention and listen to others if they have something to share and really hear what they have to say. You know, it's very easy to get caught up in our own stories and everything we want to say, but if we're listening to the components around us and we're listening to those we are closest to, we can learn a lot if we're really hearing, right? We're not just kind of like, yeah. Oh, and by the way, me. If we're really hearing what they're saying, not only will we learn more about them and what they want to give us and how they want to show up for us, but we'll also be learning about ourselves because once again, Libran energy is very self-reflexive. It's very much about the world as a mirror and our relationships are a mirror of how we're treating ourselves. You can see why this Libra full moon almost always gets me because it just takes us there. It takes us to the crux of a really big part of our experience in the world as embodied beings in relationship to others. Our relationships to others and our close one-on-one relationships are crucial. And this moon just is like, hey, this is what's happening. Okay, I pulled cards. I didn't even look. Makes a lot of sense. Nine of Wands has been coming up in these moon readings, I swear. So Nine of Wands, Wheel of Fortune, the Lovers, and the Five of Wands. Okay. I think we can all agree that the Wounded Warrior has been coming up a lot with these 0-degree moons because, once again, this guy has trauma. What I just recently heard the term moral injury. He's seen and experienced some heavy things that kind of changed his perspective, and he has the potential to become really jaded. The world-weary warrior. He's seen a lot. He wants to retract. He wants to keep an old pattern that was self-protective. And it's kind of that point at which you decide, are you going to keep being self-protective? Or are you going to put down that weapon and look into that playfulness? Look into what could be beyond anything that you don't need to hold on to anymore. I mean, the thing with this guy is he's holding so stiffly onto this old guard, even though the situation is gone. There are green pastures behind him. There is no conflict. But he is so terrified that he will relive something again, that he's living it in his mind. I mean, this is a very symbolic, important energy that comes up time and again. So when he's showing up here, it's like, okay, this full moon's going to be highlighting that feeling in us where we are cutting ourselves off from being open. Because there's so much blunt energy here, I will say this. There is the potential for somebody to call you out, show you yourself very clearly in some capacity or other in the few days around this moon, and for you to want to shut down because it's so close to the truth and it's so hitting into what you know is already true for you that part of you will want to get defensive and shut down. So, be kind, be gentle with yourself, because here's the thing. This is about revolution. The Wheel of Fortune makes me think about Uranus and Taurus. The wheel is turning right now, and I know a lot of you are feeling it. It is turning, our identities are shifting, and what seems important and how we're going to build our legacies is changing. And there's like kind of almost the conversations that have been going on in the sky, and the energy has kind of been this thing of, oh, you're still wanting to live in that past version of yourself? Well, too bad. Like, there's no time for that. And it's almost like, I think some people are experiencing this as very uncomfortable and scary because they feel like they're getting pushed out the door. And that door is just being closed behind them and they're standing out, and it's kind of overwhelming. It's like agoraphobia or something after a time of, well, I knew how this worked, even if it wasn't that great. I knew how it worked at least. And Wheel of Fortune is like, oh, that worked for you then. Now we're going to go over here. And this moon is a big part. Like I said, this is the first full moon in this new transit zone we're in. And it's the first of 2 Libra full moons. So we are opening up a dialogue for a month that has to do with revolution in our lives. Now, it has the potential to bring about great harmony and connection. It also has the potential to cause rifts. And that's what I want you guys to kind of pay attention to this coming month, in fact. And we will check in again, obviously, with the new moon, the Aries new moon, and the next Libra full moon. But I just got chills when I'm looking at these 2 cards. The Lovers, of course, is about deep patterning. It is about challenge and also about harmony and love and freedom. It's about those relationships that kind of bring all of that up, right? Like those really complex, nuanced relationships that, yes, are about love and mirror and caring and divine connection and kismet and all that stuff. But also those relationships, they bring all that up, and they also bring up how you're holding yourself back, how you're stopping yourself, how you're self-limiting, right? So there's a lot coming up with the Lovers energy. And I think, this is a month where you may be getting a lot deeper when it comes to themes, when it comes to what does relationship mean? Is it a means to distract yourself from what you really want to be doing on earth? Is it a means to try and fill you up when you know you have other things you want to be working on? Is it a distraction? Or is it something that adds and amplifies to who you are? Is it something that reflects back at you who you're wanting to become as you step into a bigger, bolder version of yourself, and you're practicing into better routines and habits? You're practicing into playing the role. All the world's a stage, right? And we are finally crafting our performance in that. And it's not just about being a mirror or wearing a mask and faking it. When you're really in your role, and you're giving that extra, showing up to it, whether it's alone, quiet in your house, or in your community and how you give for others and how you give in your relationships, we are actively honing our craft. Now, the other option is this Five of Wands, which is so much about sparring it out. Now, I kind of like the Five of Wands, I have to admit. Maybe I'm a little bit of a fire sign, but I've been talking a lot recently with people, and I have this thing where I really love blunt people that just say it like it is. And yes, sometimes that can get excessive, but the one thing that I love about it, there's lots of things I love about it, is that you always know where you stand, and if you have something to squabble about, you have it out. You say, I don't agree with that. I think we need to grow past that. And Five of Wands is very much a point of growth. It has the potential to become petty. It has the potential to be about nothing and be about drama and just be about competition and being about better than this person, or I was right and you were wrong. Yes. This also has the potential to really get to the root of any arguments you're having or any disagreements or any places where you're feeling you have misunderstandings. And that's where I'm saying, with hearing, really hear the people around you. Really hear what they're saying. I think a lot of times, we have, each of us has our translator in our head. That translator has been developed since we were born, with the people around us and the way we've built up defenses. So when we hear somebody talk, especially somebody we care about or in a more tender situation, they speak the words. And if we're not in kind of a more relaxed hearing state, we put it through our translator and we get out of it what we want to hear or what we are expecting to hear. So that can be a defensive version of hearing, it can be a needy version of hearing, or it can be a really kind of blind version of hearing, right? Like we only hear pockets of what we want to hear and we don't really pick up the whole message. And that's where we have the potential to get into phrase with this moon. And that's why I'm saying, slow down. I'm not saying self-isolate. I'm not saying you have to hide from the world. In fact, a lot of conversations could be very good. But rather than impulsively reacting, slow down. Really hear. Hear yourself, hear others, and you have the potential to get closer to everyone around you. Or you have the potential to feel very isolated and very far from the people you love. And that's where I think this moon is going to be interesting, and all of you are going to experience it differently. I'm very curious to see how I will experience this because, like I said, the Libra full moon just gets me in my feelings, I have to say. And normally the way that I deal with that is I do step back. I don't make a lot of big plans. I try and kind of stay quiet, and I just listen and I sit with the discomfort so that I can just hear what's going on. And like I said, every moon is kind of different. Everybody experiences it differently. I'm curious. I'm like, let's go into this storm because there's something there. There's like a gold mine within this moon that I think we're all going to come out a little crisper, a little clearer, a little cleaner. And I think, it's just the beginning of a whole month of revolution. Okay, I'm going to close it out there. You guys, I'm wearing, this top is from my friend Lucy, who runs Earth Lotus Arts. I'm going to leave her Etsy shop link below. She is amazing. She makes everything by hand. And this top actually comes with a crystal in it. Yeah. I'm in denial. It's snowing where I live and it's cold and I'm wearing summer clothes because I want to be playing and frolicking in the summer and pretending that I'm out there in the world. But I'm going to leave her link below. Of course, PinkLune. I'm always wearing her jewelry. As you guys know, she's my boo. I love her. I love both of these women. And you can catch me on Instagram at SarahVerba. You can also find me on my website, sarahverba.com, SARAHTAROT.com. They'll take you to the same place. I'm booking appointments into the summer months up here in the Northern Hemisphere, winter months for you in the Southern. I would love to work with you. You can book right on my site, plan ahead, get that session with me so that we can have our time together. I will see you guys for the next new moon. And of course, the monthly readings, those are right on the way. So I'm so excited. Take really good care of yourselves during this moon. Check in, really hear, and you'll be amazing. I love you guys.